Hello Aries, welcome to your October love reading. Today's love reading is tapping into the energy between you and the person on your mind, especially what they're not saying but definitely still feeling. We'll look at where you've been, what's going on right now, and what could be unfolding in the next couple of weeks. So if you've been sensing something under the surface, this one is for you. There's a tension running through your shared past, like you were both pulled toward each other for very different reasons and with very different needs. From the outside, this might have even looked like this connection had everything it needed to work: attraction, shared experiences, and an emotional pull that felt magnetic. But underneath that, the dynamic was unbalanced. One of you showed up craving something solid, a connection that felt rooted, safe, and reliable. Maybe you or they pictured a slow build, something long-term and something that could evolve into real stability. But the other person didn't seem to move from the same place. They were more impulsive, more reactive, and more present in the now than in the future. What you had was desire without direction. Yes, there was chemistry, but there was no structure, and that is where it got messy. At times, it lightly felt like you were constantly trying to predict their next move. What mood they'd be in, whether they'd show up or pull away, or if today was a day for closeness or coldness. And for the one who desired something grounded, that unpredictability may have felt exciting at first, but eventually it became exhausting. You can only adjust your expectations so many times before trust starts to erode. Still, this connection wasn't all chaos. There were moments that were brief but powerful, when you both tried to get it right and when you met in the middle. When one of you pulled back to give space and the other leaned in just to keep things alive. Those moments were real. They weren't just emotional band-aids, they were attempts to bring balance to something neither of you could fully name at the time. This was a connection that pushed both of you to confront your own extremes. How much you're willing to give, how long you'll wait, and what you're truly looking for. And the emotional residue of that is still here. This isn't just about what happened, it's about what it meant. It wasn't just someone ghosting or fading out. It was a missed opportunity that still echoes. Because there was potential here, and there was a mutual pull, but the foundation was off. Either one person wasn't emotionally ready, or they couldn't give in the way the other person needed. Maybe they were too focused on their personal life, could have been money, career, independence, or maybe they just didn't know how to show up consistently for someone who actually mattered to them. You may have asked yourself during this time, why does this feel so important if it's not going anywhere? That's the question that often shows up in karmic or catalyst connections. One's designed not to just teach lessons, but to change us. This person stirred something in you that wasn't dormant, it was just buried. And whether or not they recognized it, you grew through this. You learned more about your standards, your boundaries, and the emotional space you want to share with someone. Not just the spark, but the structure to hold it. There's a stillness to this past energy now. Like a scene after a storm, everything looks intact, but you know it's changed. You have changed. And while they may have drifted, emotionally or physically, the energetic tie hasn't snapped. Not entirely, because when a connection shakes you like this, it doesn't just vanish, it lingers quietly until one or both of you are ready to face what really happened. Right now, this connection feels like it's suspended in a quiet, emotional in-between. Not necessarily over, but not active either. One or both of you has stepped back emotionally, maybe physically too. But the real shift isn't just about distance, it's about detachment. Not from a lack of care, but as a survival mechanism. The emotional weight became too heavy to keep carrying in silence, and something had to give. There's a shared sense that whatever existed between you couldn't keep operating the way it was. Something was unsustainable, too one-sided and too unclear. One of you may have initiated the pullback, but it wasn't an act of punishment, it was an act of protection. That kind of walking away isn't fueled by bitterness. It's the kind that says, I can't keep pouring into something when I don't know if it's holding water. It's a quiet surrender, not because the connection didn't matter, but because it mattered too much to keep breaking yourself over it. But here's where it gets complicated. Even as one of you walked away, or tried to, clarity rushed in. There's a moment of mental sharpness here. one of those internal awakenings that doesn't come during the chaos, but in the silence that follows it. Maybe you've had realizations about your own patterns, how long you tolerated uncertainty, and how much you gave without receiving, or maybe they're the one finally seeing things clearly, how they sabotaged something meaningful, or how they confused freedom with avoidance, and how their silence said more than they ever intended. There's this undeniable truth hanging in the air now, like it's waiting to be spoken, but no one's sure how to say it first. You can feel it in the atmosphere of the connection, a shift, a quiet urgency, like there's no more room for illusions here. You both see what this is, what it was, and what it could have been, and that kind of clarity is hard to ignore. What's even more interesting is that the energy isn't stagnant, it's actually speeding up. Even if you haven't spoken, there's motion here. Something is building. You might be seeing signs everywhere, dreams, synchronicities, emotional waves hitting you at random. That's not your imagination, that's energetic movement. There's a pull to reconnect and to talk, and to say what's been unsaid. And for some of you, that communication is coming in sooner than expected. There's tension here, not dramatic or explosive, but emotionally charged. One or both of you is fighting the urge to reach out, trying to rationalize the silence, but the emotional thread is still very much alive. It's not a question of if this connection is being thought about, it's a matter of how much it's consuming your minds. You might also feel a strange duality, wanting closure but hoping for a reconnection, wondering if it's better to let go entirely, yet not being able to stop checking your phone. That's part of this energetic swirl. You're not imagining it. There's unfinished dialogue here, and it's pressing against both of your chests. For some, this may be a period where messages do come through, out of nowhere. This could be a simple check-in, or a, hey, I was just thinking about you. And while that might seem casual on the surface, it won't be accidental. That kind of message would be charged with everything unsaid. A breadcrumb that could lead to a much deeper conversation if the energy is handled right. This present moment is powerful. It's a crossroad of clarity and action. If something happens soon, it'll happen fast. So the best thing you can do right now is stay grounded and listen to your gut. If communication comes in, you know if it's genuine. If it doesn't yet, trust that there's still movement happening just beneath the surface. Over the next 30 days, this connection enters a delicate phase. Not dramatic, not explosive, but meaningful. There's the feeling of an emotional reset beginning to form. One that starts quietly, maybe even clumsily. It's not going to be about sweeping gestures or grand confessions. It's subtle, like someone circling back to something they left unfinished and asking themselves, is there still something here? The first shift may come in the form of a small interaction. Maybe it's a message, a like on social media, or a low-stakes question. Something that almost seems too casual to mean anything, but the intention underneath is real. It's a way of signaling that the door hasn't fully closed, even if it's been locked for a while. And while it may feel minor on the surface, it's actually the start of something much more significant, because it's not rooted in impulse, it's coming from reflection. This future energy feels like someone who's been quietly thinking things through and finally reaching the point where they're ready to test the waters. But here's the key. What's being offered isn't certainty. It's a seed. Something that could grow if it's nurtured properly. And with that comes a very honest need for patience. This isn't someone ready to leap into commitment overnight. There are still hesitations, lingering doubts, and wounds that still haven't fully healed. But there's also curiosity, a desire to reconnect and maybe rebuild. That desire to rebuild, however, hits a wall when deeper fears start surfacing. There's this realization that even if the feelings are still there, the structure you had before simply can't hold them anymore. This foundation was cracked, and pretending it wasn't won't work this time around. There's a growing awareness on both sides, conscious or not, that the old version of this relationship just isn't viable anymore. Something broke. Whether it was trust, consistency, timing, or emotional communication, there's no going back to how things were. And while that can feel heavy, it's also freeing, because it means that there's another chapter. It has to be written differently. That's where the transformation begins to unfold. There's a shedding process taking place, either within them, within you, or within the connection itself. The energy of transformation is strong here, and it's asking for total honesty. If this is going to move forward, there has to be a release of what no longer serves you. That means letting go of false hope, letting go of unhealthy dynamics, and letting go of the fantasy that love alone is enough to make something work. In this next month, there's an invitation for emotional maturity. If contact is made, the energy will feel different. It'll be less reactive and more cautious. You may find yourself speaking more vulnerably, even if the words are few. There's potential for reconnection, but only if both of you are willing to acknowledge the changes that need to happen. This is not the kind of getting back together energy that ignores the past. This is the kind that says, I've changed. Have you? That might sound intimidating, but it's actually an opportunity, because what's unfolding here is something rooted in truth. No more illusions, no more wishful thinking, just real, raw transformation. And for some of you, that might mean a slow reconnection that builds into something stronger. For others, it might mean finally accepting the ending for what it is, so that you can create space for a new connection, either with them or someone else, that doesn't carry the same old weight. What's clear is that this next chapter is pivotal. What happens or doesn't happen over the next 30 days is going to set the tone for how this energy moves forward. If there's communication, it'll reveal whether you're truly emotionally aligned right now or still trying to meet in the middle from opposite sides. If there isn't communication, it's because the internal work is still in progress. Either way, something is shifting, and whether it brings you closer together or finally sets you free, that shift is necessary. They may not be showing it, but the emotional thread between you is still very much intact, and stronger than you would think. There's affection here, softness, even longing, but it's hidden beneath a layer of them feeling overwhelmed that they've struggled to process. Right now, they're trying to reconcile with what they feel with what they believe is safe, and that's where the conflict begins. Emotionally, there's a part of them that wants to come towards you. There's romantic energy here, not just physical attraction or nostalgia, but a real desire to connect on a deeper, emotionally vulnerable level. That part of them still thinks about what it would be like to offer something genuine, to show up in a way that they couldn't or wouldn't before. It's the kind of feeling that stirs when they're alone or when someone reminds them of you unexpectedly. They may not be consciously daydreaming about you every day, but when those moments hit, they hit hard. And yet, they are tired. Not tired of you, but tired of this pressure that they've placed on themselves, and maybe the pressure they feel when thinking about you and what reconnecting would actually mean. Emotionally, they've been carrying a load that they never fully shared with you. That could be about this connection, or it could be about the weight of everything else in their life bleeding into it. Stress, fear of intimacy, past heartbreak, family pressure, whatever it is, that weight has shaped how they respond to you. At times, it may have made them seem cold, distant, or detached, but really it was a defense mechanism, one they've outgrown, but haven't completely dropped. They've reached a point where they want relief. They're tired of replaying the past, tired of feeling stuck between what they want and what they're afraid of, and you, whether you know it or not, represent both. Because they want the emotional closeness you bring, and at the same time, that very closeness has terrified them. It's not about you being too much or doing anything wrong. It's about how being seen by you made them feel vulnerable in a way they weren't prepared for. Even with all that emotional heaviness, there's a clear part of them that still imagines happiness with you. Not a fleeting moment, but the kind of happiness that feels stable, safe, and complete. Something about you activated their vision of a future they probably didn't allow themselves to believe in before. That emotional fulfillment, that sense of emotional home, you brought that out of them, or at least made them realize they were craving it. And that's not a small thing. It's not surface level. When someone envisions long-term emotional safety with you, family, healing, partnership, true emotional contentment, that doesn't fade easily. Even if they're silent, even if they pulled away, that vision still lives with them. But here's the catch. Knowing what they want and believing they deserve it are two different things. And emotionally, that's the gap they're trying to close. That's what's been stalling them. They care, they still feel it, and they want that emotional connection with you. But their own fear, shame, or unresolved emotional baggage makes them question whether or not they're ready or worthy of it. In their heart, they may believe you could still be it, the one who sees them clearly, the one who could have built something real with them. But whether they act on it depends on their ability to finally release the emotional weight they've been carrying alone. So while they may appear distant or emotionally withdrawn, know this: the feelings are not gone. They're buried beneath layers of fear, pressure, and self-doubt. And if they ever do come forward, it won't be because they suddenly remembered you. It'll be because they finally stopped running from how deeply they feel. The energy around their next move is careful, quiet, and introspective. If you're expecting bold action, a confession, or a sudden surge of courage, this likely isn't it, at least not right away. What's building isn't a romantic leap forward, but an emotional recalibration behind the scenes. They're thinking, analyzing, reevaluating everything that's happened between you. But action, right now, it's internal. They're guarded, mentally and emotionally. There's a fog in their head that hasn't cleared yet. You may notice they're either extremely quiet or strangely indirect when they do communicate. The truth is, they're afraid of saying the wrong thing, or more accurately, afraid of opening the door to a conversation they don't feel equipped to handle. This isn't about manipulation, it's about uncertainty. They don't trust their own emotional judgment right now, and that mistrust has led them to overthink every possible move. Underneath that mental clutter is a heart that's still in recovery. Even if they've healed more than you think, they're not fully there yet. They've been carrying emotional pain, possibly from this connection, possibly from ones before it, that they've never properly processed. They've done a lot of repressing, convincing themselves that they were fine or that time would take care of this ache. But time doesn't heal what isn't faced, and now it's becoming clear to them that avoiding the emotional truth hasn't brought peace. It's just delayed the inevitable. What's different now is that they're finally beginning to confront that. The pressure to act has been replaced by the need to understand. They've gone inward, not out of avoidance this time, but from a deep need to find answers that no one else can give them. That's where the hermit comes in. This is someone who's in a serious period of self-reflection. They may be silent, but they're searching, looking at their own patterns and asking themselves the hard questions. Why did I pull away? Why couldn't I show up? And why does this connection still haunt me? They're trying to understand the difference between fear and instinct, between longing and love. And that kind of soul searching doesn't happen quickly. It happens in stillness. So what does this mean for their next move? It means it's not coming just yet. Not because they don't care, but because they're finally doing the internal work that could lead to something real. That doesn't mean that you'll never hear from them. It doesn't even mean that they won't reach out with something small, but their energy isn't ready for a clear, emotionally present conversation just yet. They know that, and whether they admit it or not, they don't want to reconnect unless they can come correct this time. In the broader context of this reading, this matches what we saw in the future energy. There's transformation underway, but transformation doesn't look like action. It looks like silence, stillness, and emotional processing. Their next step, for now, is inward. It's reflection over reaction, and while that may not give you the clarity you want today, it's actually a good sign, because it means that when or if they do come forward, it'll be from a place of consciousness, not confusion. You're not forgotten, you're not invisible, you're part of what's driving their reflection, but their next move isn't about proving something to you, it's about proving something to themselves. That they can show up differently, that they can heal, and that they can stop running. And when that work is done, if they're brave enough to complete it, that's when you'll see movement. So that's what I've got for you today, Aries. If this reading resonated, please let me know in the comments and give this video a like. And if you want to see more readings like this, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.